I want to talk about John Marvellous Campbell, and his 5-part documentary, Bagging the Destiny Church, which, like Annalise's look into the 2x2 thing, whatever that is, for the Herald, is simply a distraction, so no one has to talk about the fact that Benjamin Bussy Doyle is still the early childhood education spokesperson for the Green Party. And his highly questionable and inappropriate social media profile hasn't been probed at all by the mainstream media. John Campbell has launched a 5-part documentary series for TVNZ. He's called their chief correspondent, which means he does bugger all work. Anyway, and it seems to be based on the fact that John's never felt so much fear in his life. And it's based on an interview with a woman who was meant to be anonymous, but you could see who she was, who has a domestic protection order against her ex-husband, who went to Destiny Church. And that is enough to say that Brian Tamaki is the devil incarnate. Now, I'm not backing Brian Tamaki here. He's just come out and said some very stupid things about Indian people in New Zealand. And he thinks that gay people cause earthquakes. So I've got no brief for Brian Tamaki. But you know what? Until he's locked up for breaking a law, until he kind of drugs and kidnaps his church members, he can kind of do what he likes. But John Campbell has launched an attack against Brian Tamaki, it would seem to me personally, and certainly against his church, saying amongst other things, they tithe people, which means they take or they expect a tenth of their wages as being part of the church. Geez, John, you know who else tithes people? The Green Party and the Labour Party. Lots of political parties. John, are you going to do pieces about how evil they are, John, or not? And you say you've talked to 20 people who have been victims of domestic violence and happen to be part of Destiny Church, but there's no causative link. The case that and this is what John Campbell didn't tell you about the domestic violence victim that he unwittingly revealed to the world, who was too scared of Destiny Church or something, all claims that can't be verified. John didn't tell you that case of domestic violence is 8 years old. 8 years old. So, John, that just looks desperate, mate. You were desperately looking for something that wasn't about Bussy Doyle's social media profile, and you have quite rightly been absolutely vilified and mocked for your so-called investigative piece of journalism, which was no more, and it's what you did when we first worked together, and I watched you working on current affairs at TV3. You'd find something a bit woke or left-wing. You'd throw because you've got none, all journalistic integrity out the window, and like Mihirangi Forbes with her documentary on the Rarotongan Coast Watchers, you produce a piece of political propaganda. So, as it is under his command or something, he calls this piece he's made, it's rubbish. And that the editorial people at Television New Zealand let that go to air and let it be published is ridiculous. I've got no brief for Brian Tamaki. He says some of the stupidest things possible. But to use some interviews with people who aren't prepared to be identified about an incident that occurred 8 years ago to try and destroy someone's reputation, John, that's just a misuse of your position, in my humble opinion.